Hey guys, my name is Anthony and in today's video I'm going to be talking over a league race. I know I haven't made much league racing highlight videos this year, but moving forward I do want to make a lot more of them. So make sure to hit the like button if you do enjoy this video, and if you are new to the channel, consider hitting the subscribe button because league racing content is actually the main content on my channel. I know it may not look like it based on what I've been uploading this year, but it is the main point of my channel. So let's get into today's race. So as you can see, we're at Paul Ricard for IRL. I believe this is season 2, round 7. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe that's what it is. And we're in the Ferrari. It's not because I'm actually a part of the Ferrari team. In this league, I am currently a reserve driver for tier 1. However, they do need me quite often, so you will see me in different cars for the foreseeable future. But as we come up to this lap now, this is actually the fastest lap of the session because we end up making a mistake on our final lap, which I will show after that. But as you can see, we got turn 1 and turn 2 okay. I would say it was probably a 7 out of 10, but as you can see, the final couple of corners of sector 1 was where we lost a lot of time. I definitely think we lost around about 2 tenths on those final couple of corners for sector 1, so there's a lot of time in this lap already. Currently we've got a 27.8 as our fastest lap. That was our banker lap, and our PB is actually a 27.0, so there's definitely a lot of time in this. But coming to the chicane, we actually take the chicane quite nicely. Not as nice as I know I can take it, but we do gain quite a lot of time, evident from the fact that we actually do get purple sector 2. So moving on to the final sector now, is really all about just hitting as many apexes as we can and trying to gain as much time as we can. And we actually missed the second apex on the exit of that long right hander, so we did lose probably about half a tenth, close to a tenth, and we do go through a little bit of traffic, which did distract us a little bit, but not enough to really set us offline from this lap. So only a couple of corners left to go, just got to try and hit as many of those apexes as we can. And as we come up to the last corner, we completely missed the apex for the final corner, which definitely lost us about a tenth, maybe a tenth and a half in this lap. So as we cross the line, it is a 27.6, which did put us P2 at the time, but we do move down the order to P3 towards the end of the session, and this is our final lap. So let's see what actually happened here. So turn 1 and 2, we actually take it a little bit better than we did on the previous lap, but we could have taken a little bit more curb going into the second corner. But going into these couple of corners, we hook up quite nicely, and as you can see, we gain about a tenth and a half, still about half a tenth in it. But as we come off of the exit for turn 6, the car just didn't respond to what we were trying to do, and we ended up spinning and damaging our wing, and that was qualifying pretty much over at that point. So as you can see, looking at the final results of qualifying, we do end up in P6 as other people did improve, which wasn't ideal for us, but it's still within the top 6, so we could still make something happen here. And as you can see, going into the strategy, I actually decided to go for the worst strategy on purpose. And the reason why I did this is because I wanted to try something different. Usually when I race at Paul Ricard, I will do the optimal strategy, which is either hard to mediums or mediums to hard. But this time I decided I just wanted to do something different. I'm a reserve in this league, so it will allow me to really try different things out. So we decided to go for the soft to hard strategy for this race. So as you can see, the race has already started, and going into turn 2, Chile just didn't give us the space there, so we actually ended up losing a couple of more positions. We're already down to P11, so we've already lost 5 positions as we try to just stay on the outside there of Choco, who is on the hard tires. I really don't want to stay behind him, because he's on those hard tires. Around the softs, we're going to be a lot faster than him at this current stage of the race, and if we stay behind him, then that means we're going to be losing a lot of time to the guys ahead who are on the soft. So as you can see, I'm spamming my ARS just to make sure that we do get past him. And as we brake going into the chicane, I have to brake a little bit early just to leave Chile a little bit of space. And I actually didn't see that Choco had still held it on the inside going into the right hander of the chicane. So we actually end up making contact, and he actually ends up spinning a little bit and losing a couple of positions. But luckily we didn't actually get a penalty for that, because of obvious reasons we were trying to leave space for another car. So it was sort of just a lap 1 incident really. Not really much could have been done there. So at this moment of time now, I just want to keep my head down and really try and stick with the guys ahead, because we have lost in total about 4 positions on this lap, and we do have Ron Hart on the hard tyres behind us, who is without a doubt the quickest guy in this league. In fact, he's probably one of the quickest guys on the entire platform on Xbox, so it's going to be really difficult to keep him behind on the hard tyres, especially since the softs die off pretty quickly around here. But as we move on to lap 3 now, we do make up a little bit more time on Chile, so we are going to be within the DRS, which is obviously very beneficial for us, as we want to stick within the DRS of the people ahead of us as much as we can, so that we can keep Ron Har and Danny Rick F1, who's on the medium compound of tyres as well, behind us. So yeah, as we come up to turn 6, you know, we're taking turn 6 a little bit better than we were in qualifying, which is obviously ideal, but we're still losing just a little bit of time. We're making a few mistakes, not hitting every single apex that we can, and as you can see, we've lost quite a bit of time to the guys ahead because we're just not hitting the apexes that we need to. As you can see, we make a complete mess of that chicane, but the Renault actually ends up spinning, so that's a free position for us. So we're now up to P9, and really and truly, I just wanted to try and stick with Chile and just make the move before we end up going into the pits, because we've lost quite a lot of time to Dark Killer, who you can see is now 2 seconds up on the road, and I believe it was just because there was a little bit of a battle going on between Chile and the Renault before he spun. So there's a lot of time to catch up to the guys ahead, especially considering we were in P6 starting off this race. As we move on to lap 6, I wanted to get past Chile before I went into the pits, and this was the opportunity to do so. So we use all of our overtake as much as we can anyway. We use DRS and we make the move very cleanly, very easily. There was no fighting for it. Chile knew that I was going to make the move, but he actually also let Ron Har through on the hard tyres as well. So I didn't want to let Ron Har through, even though I knew I was going to pit this lap. I wanted to keep him behind pretty much until we hit the pit lane. So that's exactly what we end up doing, just using a little bit of ERS on our in lap. And I thought that one of the McLarens were actually going to cover off this undercut that I was going to go for, or even potentially pit on this lap as well. It is still quite early. It is risking it if you're going to be pitting for the hard tyres at this point. But once again, as I said, I went for the worst strategy on purpose just to try something different. So we were going to pit at the end of this lap and go for that worst strategy. Just go for the risk and see what happens. So we go into the pits and we brake at the right spot, get in the pit lane pretty much solid. And none of the McLarens actually pit at this time. So I definitely thought, okay, well, maybe the McLaren, one of the McLarens will try and cover off that undercut on the next lap. And as you can see, coming off of the pit lane, we actually just let go of the clutch just that slight bit too early, which means we've lost about a half a second to potentially a second, and that did actually cost us in terms of the undercut, because as you can see, Bourbon Boy did end up coming out ahead of us, and I feel as if we didn't let go of the clutch early, we wouldn't have been held, and we might have actually made up that position on Bourbon Boy. But either way, at this point of time, I just wanted to try and stick with him. We did make up 2 seconds from that undercut, I do believe. So we've made up quite a bit of time, and at this point in time, our hard tyres are in the ideal conditions, whereas Bourbon Boys is still a little bit cold as he's just come out of the pits, but it's not going to be too long until those tyres heat up and he's going to be able to showcase his pace on the hard tyres. So as long as we stick with him, then I feel as if we would be fine. But as you can see, coming off of Sector 1, we're just getting a little bit loose on certain exits with the hard compounded tyres, and at that point I was really thinking to myself, okay, I'm gonna have to be super smooth on the throttle because I am taking these tyres to the end of the race, and by the end of the race we are definitely going to be in puncture territory, as Chile actually bottles it and gets wing damage as he lets us through, which I'm very thankful that he let us through, because realistically he only really needed to let his teammate through, whereas he didn't actually have to let me through, but he did, luckily anyway. So yeah, as you can see, just not really getting the traction correct on certain exits, which is building up tyre wear. So, you know, we really need to be as smooth as possible on the tyres, or else they're really going to hurt us towards the end of the race when we're towards that puncture territory. And one thing I didn't actually mention is Dark Killer, who was a couple of seconds up the road before we hit the pit lane, is actually now behind us. So I don't know if he ended up with wing damage or something like that, but as you can see, he's got 3 seconds of time penalties and he's behind us. So at this current point of time, Dark Killer is really no threat to us as long as we stick with Bourbon and Edu, who's ahead of him. and I believe Edu also has 3 seconds of time penalties at this point as well. So yeah, as long as we stick with the 2 ahead, then Dark Killer is not really going to be much of a threat to us for the foreseeable future, and that's exactly what we end up doing. We actually luckily ended up getting DRS there, as we just missing a few apexes here and there, which do lose you quite a bit of time, especially when the other people ahead of you or behind you are hitting those same apexes. If you miss an apex, especially when you're fighting against people who are on the same level as you, you can actually lose a good couple of attempts, which could be the difference between you getting DRS and you not getting DRS in these sort of situations. So you want to be as consistent as possible, and that's what we're looking to try and improve on towards the end of the game and going into F1 2021. Just really improve our consistency, really try and hit every apex as often as we can so that we can make up as much time throughout the race as possible. And then moving on to lap 13 now, you can see we're now in a 4-car train, and at this point I was thinking to myself, okay, we're actually in the worst position probably in this 4-car train, as we're in third place in this train. So that means that Bourbon Boy is going to be getting DRS on Edu ahead. So as long as we get a decent exit, we're not really going to be able to pass him, even if we use our overtake, because he can simply use his overtake and he's got DRS as well. So it's going to be quite difficult to pass him. So I just wanted to slot in, just try and keep as close to Bourbon Boy as possible, so that if he does make a mistake, if he misses an apex, or if he gets a little bit loose on exit, then we can capitalize on it. And that's exactly what Dark Killer was actually doing to us. He tried to set us offline there by just diving down the inside, but we didn't let him do it, and luckily we didn't end up losing DRS from Bourbon Boy either. So yeah, Dark Killer is making his intentions known that he does want to overtake us, but obviously we're going to fight for the position, as we are fighting for the position right now. There are people ahead who still need to pit, so I believe we're in a roughly a net P7 at this moment of time, as there are a few people who still need to pit ahead of us, especially people like Ronha, people like Choco, who started on those hard compound tires. So yeah, as long as we stick in this train and we're consistent with our pace, hopefully we can make up as much time as those guys as possible, because as I said, the hard strategy, starting on the hards, is a lot better on this track than starting on the softs, because you know, towards the end of the race, you're going to be on the faster compound of tire. Your car's going to be a lot lighter, as you've burned quite a bit of fuel as well. So you're going to be absolutely rapid towards the end of the race if you start on the harder compound of tire. And that's actually the case to most tracks on this game. If you start on the harder compound of tire, it's going to be a lot more beneficial to you towards the end of the race, as you've burnt more fuel and you're on the softer compound of tire. If you guys did watch the F1 esports last year, you would have seen Jarno Opmeer do this strategy a lot. You know, he was known for going for those alternate strategies, and it paid off because he ended up winning the Drivers' Championship, as he was just so quick towards the end of the race that nobody could really do anything about it. So yeah, it's the same situation with us and Choco and Ronha at this moment in time. But as you can see, Bourbon Boy is close enough to Edu to make the move on him, and that's exactly what he does. Whereas we aren't really that close to Edu, so we can't make the move, and we don't really hit the apex of these two corners as best as we possibly can. So we do lose out a little bit of time to them. But I really wanted to get past Edu and really stick with Bourbon Boy, because I felt that Bourbon Boy was the quicker driver out of the two at this moment of time. So we actually look to go down the inside, but we just don't get the run going through this corner, and we have to back off a little bit and stick behind Edu, which means we could potentially lose out quite a lot of time to Bourbon Boy if he ends up pushing a little bit to get out of the DRS of Edu. So we have to try and make the move on Edu as soon as possible, and we've still got Dark Killer behind us, and even though they've both got 6 seconds of time penalties, if I was to make any sort of mistake, they could easily get within, you know, a couple of seconds out of, you know, where I currently am on track, which means they could potentially, you know, get out of the DRS and showcase their pace, and really get within those, get outside of those 6 seconds, sorry, as we actually passed Choco, who would just pit for the medium tires. And as we move on to lap 17 now, you can see Choco is so fast on those medium tires. As I said before, when you're starting on the harder compound tire, you're going to be super quick. And as we come up to the chicane now, Bourbon Boy and Edu actually make contact, so that's free positions for us, and now we can look to really stick with Choco as much as we can. That was the plan. The longer we can stick with Choco, who's on the softer compound of tire, then the easier it is going to be for us to defend against Dark Killer, who does have 6 seconds of time penalties at this point. So, you know, as long as we can keep consistent, he's really not going to be too much of a threat. But as we move on to lap 19, we just let Dark Killer through as he had the DRS on us and Choco was already 4 seconds up the road. We did end up getting 3 seconds of time penalties, which wasn't ideal, but I knew as long as I just kept focused and kept hitting every apex as best as we can, then we definitely were going to keep up with Dark Killer, who actually decides to go into the pits for the soft compound of tyre on lap 22. We decide to actually risk the strategy and stay on the hard compound of tyres, and I believe at this point in time, yeah, we had 62% on the front left. So by the end of the race, we're going to be in puncture territory guaranteed. As we move on to lap 23 now, we're checking our tyre wear and we're going to be roughly about 64% on the front left. So the tires are starting to die, and they're starting to die quickly. As we move on to laps 26 now, we have gained 10% on that front left, as you're about to see 74% on the front left tires. So the tires are pretty much dead. We have entered pretty much puncture territory now, and at this point of time I was really just trying to nurse the car home. As you can see, we are taking some curbs, but for the most part we're trying to avoid curbs as much as possible so that we don't just increase the tire wear and increase the potential risk of getting a puncture. And as you can see, going on to the final lap now, we have 78% on the front left. So we're almost at puncture territory for every tire, but we're definitely within the puncture territory for the front left tire, and we've actually got 3 seconds of time penalties as I mentioned before, and Boom Boy is about 3.5 seconds behind us. However, luckily for us, he ended up getting a puncture on this lap right around about now, and Trapman's not really going to be able to take advantage of that, as he actually ended up getting a puncture earlier on in the race and had to pit for the soft compound tires, so he's not going to be able to get within the 3-second gap of our time penalty. And as we come up to the final corners, Ron Hart ends up winning the race. As I said, he was on the much better strategy, and he's pretty much the quickest person in this league as well, so it doesn't surprise me that he ended up winning this race. But as we come up to the final corner now, it's going to be a P5, and considering that we'd lost quite a lot of positions on lap 1 and we were on the worst strategy, I personally think that was a pretty good performance on our part to really get back into that P5 position. Obviously there was a bit of luck involved with that from other people making mistakes, but when it comes to league racing, you guys should know by this point that there is quite a lot of luck involved when it comes to league racing. But that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy this league racing video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button, and if you still haven't subscribed to this point and you're watching, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because I will be uploading more league racing content in the near future. So I hope to see you guys soon for my next video.